we will hide. Hey guys, this is Lee. I'm really big right now. Sorry about that. I am joined today. Where do we go? Show and stream. Hey, there we go. We're back. Hey, this is Lee at Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia. Thanks for joining us today, guys. Today is a live in-store signing with Robert Atkins and Quinn Johnson for their new book, Elders of the Runestone. You guys are going to be able to watch along at home. We'll be talking. We'll be answering questions. So feel free to ask away. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop links right now in the comments. So if you are interested in picking up Elders of the Runestone, there you go, right there in the comments, and you guys can grab one via our website. These are all going to be signed today. So if you guys have any questions about that, just let me know. But check down in the comments to get a link to the signed copies. And through the magic of the internet, Robert and Quinn are here.
Hello.
Light.
Hey, we're back.
Yeah, look at that. I don't know that did anything. And we will go live over here as well. So we are all set up. For anybody who's tuning in on, man, I am really dark. I've got a lighting problem for myself. Here we go.
Spotlight. Yeah.
Spotlight of shame. Spotlight of shame. We're also live today on Pop Shop. If you guys haven't checked that out, it's popshop.live. It's /NBRHD Comics. That's us on all the social platforms. NBRHD Comics. We're going to go ahead and we're going to drop into our Pop Shop catalog as well. What's up, Lisa? Hi, Ibrahim. Good to see you guys.
This is fascinating.
All righty. We are going to have, that's the camera I'm using. So Elders of the Runestone, this is a new graphic novel from Robert and Quinn, who are joining us in store today. This is a full graphic novel, guys. This is 144 some odd pages.
Correct, yep.
That's a big boy.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of extras in this book as well. And so we're going to talk to the creators about that and a little bit more about just, the book process in general and how we got here. So we will have a good old time. We're going to hang out for a couple hours here on Pop Shop and on YouTube and on Facebook. If you guys have any questions, just let us know. This book, this massive trade paperback is $19.99, and it is going to come signed by our creators. So we're super psyched to be here on Pop Shop, as well as their partnership with LA Comic-Con. All right. Cool. I think this is all we're all magically getting into the universe here. So we're going to let this save. Thanks to our guys watching right now on YouTube and Facebook. And of course, our Pop Shop family. We'll be moving the camera around and we'll be showing you guys some original art, some pages from the book as well. Guys, welcome. Bryce, Marina's here. Hi, Marina. I'm here, I promise. But the stars of today's show are going to be Robert and Quinn. This is their book, Elders of the Runestone. And we are going to be taking a look, like I said, at some of the original art and talking about the process of their book as well. We'll start with Robert. Robert, I have a little bit of a relationship with.
Yeah.
Robert is a professor at SCAD in the sequential art department. and has been wonderful to bring students into the shop and, of course, be a customer as well. You guys may know Robert as the artist for G.I. Joe for a very long period of time, including the recent Snake Hunt miniseries 10-issue arc, as well as work he's done on Venom and a number of other things throughout the year. So we're throughout your career. And Quinn, I don't know very much about it at all, so I'm gonna ask Quinn a whole bunch of questions. And so Quinn, tell me a little bit about your start in the comics industry, and just tell me about that, like getting started in comics.
So I grew up just always knowing what I wanted to do. I grew up in Idaho and Utah mostly. Always knew I wanted to do comics, and originally I had planned, because I used to draw all the time and was known as one of the good drawers when I was in grade school and junior high, and so I always knew what I wanted to do. And I actually, ninth grade is when I had the first idea for Elders of the RUNESTONE for the characters. So it's been in development for over 27 years.
Wow.
Which is crazy to me, but it's been awesome. So it's kind of been my lifelong passion project. And then went to SCAD, where Robert and I met through church and through classes. And I said, hey, I've realized here at SCAD that everyone here is a better artist than me. So how would you feel if we teamed up on this project that's been my lifelong project since I was really young, and I'll be the main writer and you'll be the main artist. And he said, yeah, which I'm so grateful. So after that, after I graduated from SCAD, we still kept in touch. We were working on Elders of the RUNESTONE in the background. My first professional work, I've always been a huge Ninja Turtles fan, huge Ninja Turtles fan. Discovered the Mirage comics when I was young, and they completely blew my mind. And so then I saw that in 2006, I believe, it was the first New York Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And I saw that Peter Laird was going to be there, who's one of the co-creators of the Turtles. And I was like, you know what? That would be a cool lifelong dream fulfilled. I've never been to New York in my life. And so I was like, I'm just going to go to this comic convention and meet him. That would be really cool. And then I thought, if I'm going to go through all the effort of going there, I might as well write a script and pitch it to him. And, because I had written stuff just on my own for a long time and was developing everything and planning on hoping to do a comics career. So I thought, the worst they can say is no. The worst thing you can say is no. So I came and met him, and super, super nice guy. And I pitched the script, and they said, yeah, which was pretty dang cool. That my first published work was a dream.
Well, so that was when they were doing Tales of the TMNT.
Yeah, so it was the Tales of the TMNT, which was perfect because it was like an anthology where they just had various stories, various artists, various writers.
Are those like out of continuity stories too?
Yeah.
I mean, for how they kind of do it, I guess.
No, that one was.
It was
in continuity for the Mirage series.
The Mirage, okay.
Yeah. But it was a way to kind of try out new talent and try new people in, because it wasn't like the regular monthly book. It was like short stories. And
it was cool because the stories could take place at the same time as the main series, or it could have been like, this happened when they were really young.
So they're in canon, but not necessarily in continuity, like
with what's going
in
sync with what else is being published.
Plus, then they could highlight other characters besides the Turtles, and so it was perfect for kind of a jumping on point. And so they published the story, and then that was nice because once I had that under my belt, then most people had heard of the Ninja Turtles, so I could go to people and say, well, I worked on Ninja Turtles, and that kind of led to more work. I did some work with Ape Entertainment, who at the time had the license for a lot of the DreamWorks properties. So I wrote some issues of the Kung Fu Panda series and some Richie Rich and just various other things. So it was nice, just bit by bit.
Like
Megamind.
So not just all martial arts animals.
Yeah, exactly.
Between the Turtles and
he was creating a niche for himself.
So just kind of built from there, and then I also did. I've also worked for like Disney for their video game studio. They had working on the Disney Infinity series, so I wrote story for them and did game design and level design, which was awesome because I love video games too. And
well, Disney Infinity is really. I'll have to talk to you about that later. My kiddo and I played that like long past end of life for that game.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's still one of my favorite games. It was a shame when it ended because it just was a fantastic game and everybody put a lot of passion into it. So
that idea of melding the physical world and the digital world, and having comics to go along with that too, like expanding a story. That's really pretty.
Well, it was interesting because part of what so as Quinn was getting that work, like we were doing a podcast, which will tie into RuneStone stuff later, but we were doing a podcast at the time, that ran for about 3 years, from 2009 to 2000, almost 4 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Almost 4 years. And so we did about 100 episodes of this like weekly podcast for it wasn't weekly. I guess we did it for 4 years.
It was almost weekly.
Yeah.
Until things got technically difficult. And yeah.
So but we had done that, which gave him the experience of just broadcasting, managing a conversation, presenting and talking and clearly presenting ideas. And then also his background of writing story and building narrative, and his passion for video games. And then you tried out for like this and interviewed for the
Disney.
So talk about that, because I always found this really interesting.
And so our third co-host on it was the Dark on City podcast, which was originally done to help promote RUNESTONE, which was being developed. Again, it's been in development forever. So my brother Troy Johnson was also one of the three hosts, and then he is still an amazing video game designer. So he's the one that actually was working at Disney and kind of helped me get my foot in the door there. And now he's working for Warner Brothers. So just a shout out to Troy, because he's awesome.
Hi, Troy. I'm sure.
And you can pay me later. And so anyway, so that was kind of what helped me get my foot in the door. So then I interviewed for some of this special. It basically so in the Disney Infinity games, there was the whole half of the game that was like just the straightforward story campaigns built around certain movies and characters. But then there was also the free play mode called the Toy Box. And so I was on a team that specifically just built new levels with all the tools that the players at home could use in the Toy Box, and we just took them to the next level.
I love that your job was to just play in the toy box.
Literally Toy Box.
Well, it was.
I'm like, how is that your full-time salary job?
This is a guy who teaches drawing superheroes.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it was cool. It was really cool.
Here, I guess, but it's a pretty. I thought it was pretty.
It was cool. So Troy was who helped me kind of get my start in there, and just kind of.
Well, you were saying too, part of your job though was to be on YouTube representing.
Yeah. Well, so that was the thing. So when I was interviewing with the guy the good friend who became my boss, we had a good interview, and I showed him some of the comic stuff, and he said originally he initially was really focused on my story writing experience. I mean, he kind of wanted me to be the main writer guy on the team, just to help shape stories to kind of show that the narrative capabilities of these made from scratch levels that we were just making, just to show players at home that this is stuff you can do. And then I was like, and after the interview was over, I was back doing my thing, and I was like, oh dang it, I didn't even mention that I had a podcast. So I went back and I said, hey, do you mind if I tell you a bit more? And he's like, oh yeah, come on over. So I introduced him to the podcast, and then later he told me that's what.
So you went back and knocked on the door, and you're like,
hey,
I forgot about something real quick.
Yeah.
By the way, here's another reason I'm awesome. And you're like, oh wait, tell me more.
Super cool. And he was Chad is his name. Super awesome guy, good friend, very very down to earth, very cool guy. So thankfully he was like that kind of a person, and he's like I listened to your podcast, and he thought it was really funny, which was a relief. And
it could have been really bad.
But he really liked it, and then he said, I really liked how that aspect of it, that I did have some social, I don't know if social skills is the right term, but just that I'm we talk to people, we interview people on the show and all this other stuff, because that became a big part of the job.
We actually did start
interacting with for the Disney job. It was a big part of interacting with our fan community and answering questions, and then they had us build tutorial videos and like, hey, here's some cool things you can do. And so I wrote scripts for all those and helped make the videos, and I voiced a lot of the videos with other people I worked with, and so it was really fun just to kind of be a fun, I don't know, like just a fun person that they can attach to the series and make it not just so it wasn't just some mystery people in the background. It was, they actually gave a face to some of this product and made it fun. So.
I want to say welcome really quickly to some of our followers who just hopped on here today. Hi, Nicholas. Hi, Kevin. Hey, Shelby. How are you? Mobilly's here. Alex from Pop Shop. Always nice to see our Pop Shop family here. Gregor, Sharon, Jacqueline, Jessica. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for joining us. We are at Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia. We are talking today with the artist and writer for Elders of the RUNESTONE. This is a new release, just came out. This is the launch party and signing for it. You can get it right now in our catalog. Just click on the icon there. All of your copies are going to come signed by the duo of Robert and Quinn today. We're going to look at some of the interiors. We're going to talk about some of the original art. We're going to show some of that off as well. This is a full 144-page graphic novel, and Marina is taking one of these guys home. Thanks so much, Marina. We appreciate that support. The guys do too. Me too. We all do. So thanks. Appreciate that. You're going to love it. And turn it back over to Robert and Quinn now. All right. And so I'm going to show some interiors about this. You mentioned, Quinn, that this is a book 27 years in the making.
Yeah.
Were there things that stayed the same for that whole time from your original idea?
Well, originally, because, so the main characters in the story are in high school. And so a lot of it is very, if not autobiographical, it's just influenced by what kind of my experiences as a teenager. And everyone who's been a teenager or is a teenager has kind of been through that, where you're questioning lots of things and you're trying to find your place socially, and so there were certain, so like one of the main characters is Scott, who in a lot of ways was very much based on me, and not every way, but a lot of ways was based on me. So his, you find out pretty quickly that he's just moved to this new city because his dad got remarried. And you find out, so he has new stepbrothers and sisters, which is what happened to me. There's a variation of that, and that his mom had passed away, and that's kind of what led to all this, and that's kind of his backstory of him trying to figure out his life. And so some of that was very personal to me, and it was just and then of course it's not exactly what happened to me. It's very taken in new directions, but that was a big part that stayed. So that was kind of the heart and the soul of this whole series. It wasn't just about lots of big explosive action and all that stuff, which there is a lot of, which is a really fun part of the book, but it's also really deeply about the characters and kind of what they're all going through and getting to know them and just getting to know that they're, people in real life are complex, and sometimes what you see on the outside isn't what's really driving them. And so that's really been that's kind of been the heart of the book, is just the characters, and then they happen to have powers, which are super awesome too. So that's kind of what has been a big thing. So, and so there's obviously things in the last 27 years. In a way, I'm grateful that it took us so long, because there were so many. I look back at what I wrote in the original draft a million years ago, and I'm like, I'm so glad that this isn't the version that came out, and so. So the final version we have now is super cool, and I'm really proud of what we have. But so some things have definitely stayed the same. And
come on, we have some real life people here too.
Hello,
you guys
hey, how you doing?
I was on to these guys for just a second while they're doing that.
Josh, good to meet you.
Shelby,
Rob, nice to see you.
Signed copy today of the Elders of the RUNESTONE. We'll be getting those guys out to you ASAP. Hey Ryan, welcome. You guys chat, do your thing. I'm gonna talk over here.
So check out what he's got.
Cool
So
this
splash
is the book
pages.
that just came out, but feel free to check out the art. So this is
we
from
are
fourth
in
issue,
Neighborhood Comics.
and this is what's called
Absolutely,
a double page
will be.
spread.
In Savannah,
So
Georgia.
when we
Today
draw
we are
like
celebrating the
two
release of
full
Elders of the
pages
RUNESTONE,
that
which
meet
is
up
a new
together.
graphic novel from our friends Robert Atkins and Quinn Johnson.
No,
We're going to be talking about the origins of the book.
Okay,
We're
so
going to be
that
showing off
is the
some
two
interior
issues,
pages.
or the two
We're going to be
pages
showing
as they
off
meet
some
up
of the
together.
original
So
artwork.
we draw it this size,
Yeah, of course.
usually
throw that guy in there.
for the book as it gets reduced. Now, however, because of my work schedule being what it is, I was trying to speed things up, and I was actually drawing the pages actual size, which shaved about 3 or 4 hours a page, which made a difference when you have a full-time job.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
So
Hey, Mike,
that actually
how you
helped a
doing?
lot.
I'm going to let you guys take a sneak peek,
But-
Robert is showing off some pages
So
here.
what's kind of, But anyway, so
yeah, he got silent when I turned.
no, it's like let me look at Robert. I'm like,
So we gotta go check out over there first, or
oh sure, you can take it up there and
whatever you like to do. Yeah.
here? You talking, dude?
Okay.
Yeah, but here you can go and flip through some of these. So these are the actual pages that I did small, and then these for issue 4 at least is what I brought with me. And I probably could have found, I'm sure, pages from before, but I just brought pages for issue 4.
Yeah.
So we could talk a little bit about just the process itself, because as we've alluded to, it's been a journey kind of working on the book. It's taken us a long time. So when we first started we first started talking about it back when I was in school with Quinn together.
Yeah.
We were doing character designs, back in 2004, 2005, and we initially pitched the story back in 2008 or 9, I think, at a convention in Chicago.
It's crazy.
We did a little pitch book. We put our little ash can together, took it up to the convention, and showed it around and actually got some interest.
Yeah.
And had some good conversations with people. And we realized that no, there's actually something to the story where there's legs and there's a professional look to it. But we knew that we couldn't just sell the property off of a small little ash can. We had to put more time and effort into it. So we kind of went back to work and worked on it a bit longer. And that's when we launched the podcast. We talked about the project, how it was coming along, and we just started building up a bit of a following, I guess, in people who are interested in that.
Yeah.
And we got a bit more of issue 1 done, especially, and then we launched the Kickstarter eventually in 2012.
Yeah.
So between all the backing of the podcast and with people we'd met over the years, and by then I'd worked on G.I. Joe for about 3 years on a regular basis as the regular artist. At that point, I had done a little bit of work for Marvel, and so there was some people who are at least familiar with some of my work, so that helped. And we had a pretty successful Kickstarter. Now, back then, Kickstarter was still incredibly new.
Yeah.
As a comics platform, and we learned a lot from that. The whole process, again, if we could go back and do things differently, we certainly would have.
Past self, here's a couple pointers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we could spend the next 2 hours just talking about that alone.
Ooh, we might.
Yeah.
Robert mentioned his run on G.I. Joe. I just dropped the Snake Hunt trade paperback right there in the store as well, so you can pick up that from the catalog. I believe we're down to our last copy of that. I gotta go to restock. I gotta reach out to the distributor because we have. It's great having professors at SCAD, have published work, have stuff that we can get. Their students love to pick it up and then sneakily kind of show it to them and us up. I think along that as well. Really quick, hey, Rare Candy, hey Hugo, how's it going? Awesome. Yeah, and Shelby and Marina, thank you guys for helping me out with that quantity. So we got that all fixed. We have plenty of copies of Elders of the Runestone ready for you guys to take home with you today, and that is what we're talking about. I'm going to show some of Robert's original pages here as well. And one thing that I've learned from Robert, talking to him about his work and what he does, traditionally comic pages are 11 by 17. And this is what we see here. This is an 11 by 17. This is kind of a full sheet. But Robert hit me to the fact that you can work a lot faster. That's one of these guys. You can work a lot faster, smaller.
It's not like I invented that. There's other artists. I was talking to Ryan Otley about this and a number of other artists who I've kind of used that when they're on a really tight monthly deadline, and you're like, how do these guys keep up with that schedule? And even when your work is relatively detailed, I realized I was saving, anywhere from, 3 to 4 hours a page at times because of that. So at first I was penciling and inking each page myself, and I was like, I'm not getting this done fast enough. And then I was penciling the pages large, and my brother Brian was inking them. And that helped save a bit of time. And then we realized, all right, I need to shave even more time off because I have a full-time job teaching, and I was trying to do another full-time job drawing comics. And as I ran into also with G.I. Joe, I was like, this is not feasible, so I need to figure out a way to do this.
You're volunteering at the petting zoo.
Yeah, I know. It's just, there's only so much petting. So it just, in general, so I had to find something out, and I just kind of realized that if I draw the page exactly 1-to-1, it doesn't work exactly for everybody.
Nice to meet you, Jackson.
Some people enjoy that. Some people it's tough to work that small, but I tend to work tiny anyway, and there's pros and cons.
Nice to see you guys. Thanks for stopping in.
Thanks for saying bye, man. Appreciate it. So that definitely helped in a bind when time was a factor. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, when Robert did his recent G.I. Joe run that we dropped in, he had the challenge of drawing every living G.I. Joe. I always have to do the living thing.
That went off the rails at some point.
And so for that one, you worked full size, because for most of it at least, because there was a lot of really small G.I. Joe guys in the background.
Yeah, for the final issue for sure.
Yeah.
That one I did every page full size. But
Oh, yeah.
for the majority of the run, I did it small.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for the majority of the run, those I think maybe the first issue was large, and then I hit about the same realization while I was working on RuneStone. So I can't do this. So I started working small again.
Well, that's a blast. And so that is a 10-issue miniseries a 10-issue arc that is also available in our Pop Shop catalog right now. And if you guys are watching on YouTube or Facebook, we haven't forgotten about you guys. Those links are available right there in the comments if you want to hop on and pick up any of those books and get some signed books from these guys today. We are at Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia. My name is Lee. We are here with Quinn Johnson and Robert Atkins talking about their new graphic novel, Elders of the RUNESTONE. This is Series 1, Part 1 of 3. Guys, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah.
It's 27 years on Part 1.
Well, since its inception.
Yeah. Well, so basically this book collects the first 4 issues, so issues 1 through 4, plus it has a bunch of cool extras as a backup story. And kind of the way that we always structured it in our minds was we wanted it to be somewhat digestible. Like in my mind, it's like when you get to like Spider-Man number 456, unless you're like the person who's collecting them all from the get-go, if you're an average person, you're just like, well, what's the point of even starting? I feel so totally left out. And so we kind of approached it with the idea of like, let's make it somewhat like a TV series where there's a season where like a big significant storyline goes through the whole season. And that's kind of the arc. And then, and then we'll break that down further into like Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, Part 1, this is Part 1, which is issues 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then Book 2 will be 5, 6, 7, and 8 with a bunch of extras. And we are actually almost completely done with all the production on that already. Awesome. It took us a while to like get to the point where we had a good, efficient production schedule. And then issues 9, 10, 11, 12 will be Book 3, and then that will end this first big main story arc. So that's kind of what we're doing. That's the structure we're going with.
Well, I feel like that's kind of a common way a lot of publishers are looking at right now anyway, that kind of idea of doing seasons. And sometimes they're called seasons, even at this point, because we do have this kind of culture of, I don't know, binge consumption or whatever you want to call it at this point, where people do like to, especially new readers, aren't as trained up on single issues as picking up a graphic novel and just kind of being able to digest a big part of the story at once. So being able to do the single issues and then to have the complete trade of Part 1 here is a great accomplishment. For you guys, like you said, you kickstarted this with Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So that gave you guys the capital to get it going. What was your experience with that like? Was that an easy to manage process?
No,
Were there challenges you didn't think about that went along with that?
Well, and again, it's evolved since then. So again, if we were to do it now, I'm curious how different it would be. But it was a roller coaster, absolutely, like an emotional roller coaster, physical roller coaster, because you're just energy wise. Because it's when you're in the campaign, you're like, please love me, and then when someone drops out, you're like, oh no, and just all the like, this is the dream that we have. Are we getting enough support? What more can we do? Plus we both had full-time jobs. On top of that, so we're like, okay, trying to manage all these things. And so but then of course, just finishing the campaign or funding it is just the very beginning of the whole saga. And so over the next several years, it was just the constant challenge was getting artwork done in between all the other responsibilities that we had, dealing with all the other challenges, always keeping our backers in mind and knowing that they had been waiting, and they're being very, very patient and wanting to honor that. And then also to just make it as high of quality as we always wanted it to be, and not just crapping something out to get it out there, And when
you heard the Quinn promise right here,
which we could have done.
Stamp of approval.
And sometimes that's what happens with books or movies or whatever. Is they're just like, well, you know what, forget it, and they just put it out as is, and then it just and it just isn't good. It's not enjoyable for the fans.
Can I get you guys some water, some soda, or anything like that?
Maybe some water.
Yeah, that's fine.
For both of you? Okay, cool. I'm going to leave you guys while I go to get that. Marina asked a great question.
Yeah.
Marina would love to ask, since the first character or that kind of concept was created 27 years ago, what inspired you to actually create the character at that time? And they also wanted to see what that initial character or the initial impetus for the story, maybe where the seed of it was, how that looks in the rendered form in the book as well.
So hopefully I will not do this. Hopefully I can show this to the camera correctly. The character, I'm just trying to find a good shot. So this is, so Scott is this character with the brown hair. Thank you. And so, yeah, so he was kind of that main character that I was thinking of. And so he's a very, contemplative character. He's a teenager, but I feel like the general stereotype of teenagers in books and movies and stuff like that is like, oh, they're all, it's all about partying. It's all about this and this. But I having been a teenager and then with like church, I work with teenagers and just seeing that they're very, they're really cool people most of the time. They're very deep thinkers. They have lots going on in their lives. They have lots of things they're trying to figure out. And I really wanted to capture that part of, thank you. I really wanted to capture that part of these characters, and then with Scott in particular. And so that was a big reflection on that for me. I hope I'm answering your question correctly. That was kind of the heart of the seed of that character. And then it also, I guess part of his character too is he's religious, and so that's a part of him. He's just trying to figure out, okay, what is it that I feel like what my purpose is? Mm-hmm. And then when he ends up getting these superhuman abilities, then for him, he's like, well, this seems to be the answer I was looking for. And so he's still exploring that and trying to figure it out. And of course, in real life, things don't always go smoothly. And so that's a big part of like, you get those challenges to your faith, or you get those challenges to what you think you're supposed to be doing, and what do you do when those setbacks hit you? And that's how he deals with it. The other 4 characters come from other backgrounds, and so their take on what these powers mean is sometimes different. The way they deal with their challenges is sometimes different. So it's really fun to kind of put all these characters in a room together and bounce them off each other and kind of see how they're all, and that's actually, that's actually a big part of the book is with these 5 teenagers, they all come from very different backgrounds, very different, challenges they're dealing with in their personal lives. And then what happens when you throw superhuman abilities on top of all that? What do you do with that craziness, that chaos? And it kind of forces them, people who never would have hung out, left to their own devices, right? That are kind of forced to pull together and work together to figure out what do these powers mean? What do we do with them? And then at the same time get put up against this really terrible, awful, scary bad guy who's more powerful than them. And so there's lots of great drama, lots of great character stuff to be found in the story there. So I hope I'm answering your question. That was a really long.
No, I think Marina's got good feedback. Okay, I think you're doing it.
Yeah, I think in the generation that we grew up in, it's a real kind of Breakfast Club situation.
Yeah.
Just overall, like the environment of the setting throws them, this kind of unlikely group kind of throws them together, and they have to deal with it together. They can't avoid each other because of what brought them together. Then very quickly we start to see that people aren't the surface facade that we think they are. So one, it's on us to look past that, but then also, it's just people often put up that front because they're hiding something, or they are afraid of something, or they are projecting something that's different than themselves for various reasons, and sincere reasons. And so this first book shows the facade. I mean, to be honest, on purpose, it shows the facade. So, and to be honest, that's one thing I actually really enjoyed about it. I think you can read the first few issues and be like, well, this is the stereotypical jock, and this is the stereotypical like outsider kid, and this is the preppy kid or whatever. And it's that on purpose, But then what I love is that we already are well into episode. It feels like it. Issues 5, 6, and 7, and immediately you start to see their home life, their other hobbies, the things that drive them, what their purpose is, which is the big question of this first arc.
Yeah.
And I mean they wouldn't come alive so in such a real way in those issues if that groundwork wasn't set with these first 4.
Yeah.
So
and you definitely like see little hints of these deeper things.
Oh yeah, I mean it's there for sure in the first 4.
Yeah, but it really comes to more full fruition. it's interesting because like I was just rereading it, and I was, of course I've read it before because I wrote it, but I was like rereading it again, and I was like, man, Dane is the worst. Like he's just a huge jerk, and but then like later on, I'm like reading other scenes with him that come a little bit later on. I'm like, man, my heart goes out to this guy for the stuff that he's dealing with.
And you wouldn't think that at all.
You wouldn't think
the
that
first
in the
issue.
beginning.
Yeah, you're like, what
But well, and I tell this story, but this is kind of, and I had a personal experience when I was a kid that kind of is a big basis of this whole thing, and I shared this before. So, but there was a bully when I was in grade school. There was this kid that every year I'm like, please don't let him be in my class this year, and then he usually was, and he was just this terrible bully that just he was just a terror, and made my life miserable, made a bunch of the kids and the teachers' lives miserable. And then, but it was really interesting because when I was in 6th grade is when my mom passed away from leukemia, and which is, you know, it is what it is. It's kind of a surreal, interesting challenge for anyone, but someone that young. And so, but I remember I was back at school just shortly thereafter, and I was just walking down the hall doing my thing, and there was some other kid who I knew, and sometimes he would be a jerk, sometimes he would be a friend, and so this time he was teasing me about something, and he was walking with this other kid that used to bully everyone all the time, and this kid like was like, hey, you know, be nice to him, his mom just died. And the kid's like, oh man, sorry. And suddenly it like my whole perception of this kid who had been this awful person my whole life totally changed, that he had stuck up for me, and I realized this kid there's more to him, and we kind of became, we were not like close friends, but he no longer was a problem in my life, and we became friends, and that, so I feel like a great love for him now, and so that's kind of, I really feel like there's a lot of people that are like that, you know, that given the chance, their best will come through, and you know, and then you know, in the story itself, they get put into some crazy, intense, hard situations, dangerous situations that kind of bring out who they really are, and you know, they talk about like how your hardest experiences is what really shows you who you really are, and so that's a big theme of the book as well.
What was you know, I think that when you're introducing a new character, a new world, a new universe, there are lots of challenges that go alongside that, but you're introducing kind of a whole team. You're a whole cast, like a cast of not just supporting characters, but people that have the ability to be main characters in their own right. So what unique storytelling challenge was that to set up all of these different individuals to have someone to have that kind of character they could hone in on and be like, oh, that's my avatar, that's me? That's
a really good question. I think for me, it was kind of fun because, so Scott definitely is kind of like the first character you really start getting introduced to. And then he's, like I said, he's the new kid in this school because of his new family situation. They just moved to this new city. And so he's kind of like the eyes of the reader of being put in this new situation. And then gradually he gets introduced to these other characters. Some of them because he gets bullied by one, or he gets ignored by Kat, you know, or whatever. And then he becomes friends with Jenny, and then she has this big chip on her shoulder because she's kind of an outcast, and so she's able to introduce like, okay, watch out for that guy. That's Dane. He's this huge jerk, and he's this and this and this. Kind of tells you the basis for this character. It's like, and this is Zenith. He's this weird loner guy that never talks to anybody, and this and this. And so
one character links you to.
And so she is definitely like introducing you to these characters by name, and you know, you get a good like zoom in on them, on each of them, and then she kind of gives you like that
through her perception.
Yeah, which is interesting. And then once they start getting to know each other, so you kind of get introduced. So it's a great avenue, you know, with Scott being the new guy, you get introduced to these specific characters. A big part of it too is I've just kind of learned just a storytelling principle is don't spend a bunch of time on this person, on a character if they're not really gonna shape the plot in any way. Like, because then the reader's like, oh, they told me his first name. They spent like 2 panels looking at his face. Therefore, he must be important.
What's the classic Lost, Nikki and Paolo? I don't know if you watched the show Lost at all, but they built up these characters, Nikki and Paolo, did a whole episode about them, and they were completely just
they were
so then the reader's just kind of like, wait, what? You know, and so that's just so we want to make sure we definitely put the emphasis where it needs to go, and which is funny because we also when we did our Kickstarter, one of the most popular rewards for backers was that, like, for this, you know, if you back us this much money, then we'll draw you into at least a couple panels as a character that gets killed pretty quickly. And so it's kind of fun. It's like, hey guys, dead, you know. And so again, we're like, you're a cool character, but only for 1 panel, and then you're gone, you know. And but there are a couple people actually that become important like ongoing characters who we actually use their name and their likeness for a couple of them.
Oh,
And,
wow.
like John Culpepper is like the district attorney who kind of gets pulled into this whole thing. And so we definitely.
It really is funny to see his face because he was a good friend of ours when we lived in Savannah back as students. He was, just one of our friends that we went to church with, and we keep in touch with, on a regular basis today. And he supported the Kickstarter. He, supported that tier, and we're like, oh my gosh, we get to draw John into the book now. And then as we're flipping through the book, I'm like, this is so surreal to see my friend like be the district attorney in this story. I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah, I love how I see my friend. Like, you're not the one drawing him.
Well, it's just weird.
It's like the same thing. Like when I read it, I did write it as well. Yeah. I want to say hey really quickly to our new folks who have joined us: Andrew, Thorin, Corey, Arthur, Wilson, Ramon, Edward. Guys, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Hi, Linda. Thanks for joining us. We are Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia. If this is your first time checking us out on Pop Shop, click on our name up there and click the follow. See you, Mike. Good to see you, man. Take care. Have a great weekend. Click follow. That is going to be the easiest way to find out about whenever we go live. Today, in conjunction with Pop Shop and LA Comic Con, we are with Robert and Quinn. They are the writer, artist, creators of Elders of the RUNESTONE. You can find that book right in our catalog, right down there. Click on that. You can purchase it. That will come signed by the creators for you. We also have one copy left of Robert's epic arc that he recently completed for G.I. Joe at IDW. So those are in our shop right now, or in our catalog. So check that out. If you guys have questions for Robert and Quinn, you can leave those right there in the chat as well. And we will talk to them about that. We're going to be hanging out with these guys until 7 o'clock tonight. So anything you guys have questions about creating comics, about self-publishing, about creating characters and designs and creating a world, we'd love to hear from you guys. Just drop in and ask. Now, we have another question from Marina, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. But first, I have to tease Robert a little bit. So,
priority.
There is this character Adder, I believe is the name. Were you just feeling like you had to have a character that was almost all black to draw because of just years of punishing yourself with snake eyes? Or
like, one, he has to have swords. Two, he has to have lots of shadows. And he has to kick at least 3 people per issue. Those were my requirements, so I'm not going to work on this book.
And a bowl of only green jelly beans.
Yeah, that was on my rider if I was going to work on this book. So
I was trying to say it was a cross between like one of the guys from Karate Kid and Snake Eyes, and maybe some grifter with the jacket.
Oh, yeah, so cool.
I was trying to kind of like pick all my little pieces.
One of the things in the book is in the back we do have a little bit of like. So this was something we learned as we were working on the publishing, is that, quickly when you start working with a printer, there are, things about like how many pages are in the book. And we had, I think the actual number of content pages is like 136 or something like that, so like an odd number for printing.
Yep.
And so they said, well, we need a factor of 8 pages for that to be economical, because otherwise you're paying either almost as much to have an odd number or something like that. So you might as well fill those pages with content, which is why a lot of times in the back of books you have a sketchbook material or interview with the creators or something. We're like, perfect, because we got all this fun stuff we want to share. And I think when I had written into that back in material, I was already teaching here at SCAD, and I kind of used that opportunity to talk about some of my storytelling choices, and some of like this panel led to that panel and why, and compositionally, I did what I did. And so there's actually some information in the back of the book that just kind of led to, if you're interested in like how the book is crafted, how the characters come about, and even there's a page there where I said like, this is what sold me on wanting to draw this. So for me, I 100% love to draw martial arts choreographed action. It is my favorite thing to draw, hands down.
Thank goodness.
I know. And so when I get to draw a page like this, which is a single page,
crazy, guys.
When I get to do something like that, it's a big double page spread. Like that's my favorite thing to do. Like big giant action, lots of things going on, and thinking about the choreography and the blocking of it. There was a single page early on in issue 1 of Adder working his way down, like parkouring his way down from the city skyline.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, it just caught fire. I was like, I really want to work on this book and these characters. And I was just excited about the idea. And just, I mean, early on, just excited to work with a friend. And so, and I kind of realized, later how important that is. We could talk about that even more in depth, but when you do get into a big project, it is important to think, they are definitely going to be business associates.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's important to work with your friends, but
can you stand each other?
Friends you can work with,
you need
not
to
just
know,
hang out with.
Yeah, exactly. You need to be able to communicate. You have to be able to problem solve. You have to be able to not agree and work through it. And
luckily we're both hilarious.
Yeah, that helps a lot. In general.
and very humble.
Yeah.
Nicole, Doug, Brian, Andrew, welcome guys. Glad you guys are tuning in. This is Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia. We are celebrating the release of Elders of the Runestone today with writer and artist of the project. We've got Quinn Johnson and Robert Atkins here. Marina had a question for you guys, and Marina's question, or most recent one was, if you both can relate to any one of the characters, who in the story would it be? Now, we talked a little bit about kind of the founding characters and kind of seeing yourself there. At the end of the project, is that still, or not the end, you're still developing stories and this is ongoing. Is that still the character you feel closest to, Quinn, or has that kind of shifted as you've worked?
I say yes. Definitely still feel very close to Scott. He's, in a way, he's kind of like the Captain America of the team, and Captain America is like one of my favorite Marvel characters for the same reasons, just because of the kind of person he is. But I also Jenny is so much fun to write. So a lot of my, I have an amazing, I don't know if it's a curse or a blessing, but I tell dad jokes all the time.
It's a curse.
And so she's like a really funny character. And so she's very fun and feels very natural to write. She definitely has angst in her life too, but she's really, really fun to write. And so in a way, she's kind of my outlet for all my goofy humor.
Yeah.
Well, as a writer, do you do that? Do you kind of see like I'm taking, consciously or not, this is something that I really enjoy doing, but this wouldn't make sense for that character. But
yeah. And comes Jenny for the dad joke.
Yeah. But it's fun, and it's fun to but it's kind of cool because every character has because people are, like I said, people are complicated. There's lots of aspects. It's like when you're around this group of friends, you act this way. When you're around this group of friends, this part of you comes out. And so in a way, there's little bits and pieces of me, I guess, in all the characters. So I love them all, but
what about you? Yeah, as someone who has been involved with this and obviously developing the physical design and the costuming and bringing these ideas kind of to life on the page. Is there a character that you kind of see yourself in at all, or no?
Well, I would say initially it was Scott's kind of alter persona who he changes into was Gar, but that's mostly because of his melon-sized pecs.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
I think overall it was. I think it's usually like who I like to draw the most is who I end up connecting with, and then the personality comes through more in the. I read the script and I'm more always focused on what they're doing, and then I read what they say and I try to convey that through body language, and I get a sense of like who they are. But I got to be honest, it's not really until I read it when it's done that the whole story, and like we were in our conversation where I feel like I didn't draw it anymore. I'm just reading it and enjoying it for the entertainment purposes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And it's very different to consume it that way. So I connect with it more based on who I like to draw the most. And so for me, the two characters I like to draw the most are definitely Jenny, because just a bit quirky body language, how she's designed is slightly different, but then she just has this phenomenal design that we struggled with for years.
Like our armor.
Yeah, exactly. So it finally just gelled. I don't know. I talk about it in the back of the book with the commentary, but it ended up being me and my brother Brian ended up inking and coloring the fourth issue and the majority of the fourth issue. And he, it was a big page for him too. He had a breakthrough in the craftsmanship of coloring that the armor for her, and it was just it was just like such a phenomenal moment kind of for both of us. One, to design it, and two, for him to kind of color it. So, and it's a big moment for her. So luckily it all kind of came together. So it was this particular page here. But it was just in general, like she kind of levels up in a way just with her own understanding of her abilities. And then just to think about yourself, like as somebody who has been either picked on or has been a bit of an outcast in your life and struggle with confidence, and but you put on a persona of confidence. This facade, and then to end up having this ability, to be able to project that, literally project that, and to be able to protect others. And anyway, so all of that came about. I just enjoy drawing her the most because of that. And then alternatively, Scott's character took me the longest to figure out. It's interesting. Like I have a hard time drawing Superman and drawing. I know he's really.
I know. I'm looking at you right over here. He's like, you did a pretty great job.
Well, I just think it's like characters that I don't know. I think that might be one of the few like Superman drawings actually like that. There's not. I don't know. There's a few characters like Duke and GI Joe. I don't know. There's some of the leaders, like their facial structure, like me getting it right. I put so much pressure on myself to do it just right because they have a look. And it's interesting because if anybody changes the most from issue 1 to issue 4, it's Scott.
That character.
Because I drew him in issue 1 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I drew issue 4 just a year and a half ago, or a year ago, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I just, that's where you can really see my art style as an artist develop over the years. Whereas I think, while you see me grow as an artist, I think Jenny stayed a bit more consistent because I felt like I nailed her a bit earlier. Like I really understood, just the concept I was going for. Whereas Scott, I was still trying to figure out,
That's interesting. I don't know if
but Gar, I mean, he's always had the same melon-sized pecs, so that was easy from the get-go.
If you're just joining us, we're talking melon-sized pecs at Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia. Glad you could join us. We are with the team behind Elders of the RUNESTONE, celebrating the launch of the debut graphic novel, collecting the first 4 issues of the series, kind of the first season, if you will. Robert is the artist and Quinn is the writer. Longtime friends teaming up on a book that had its roots 27 years ago. And these guys have been working on it, with some momentum the last several, like you said. I mean, years.
Everything's kind of came together in the last couple of years, so
which is pretty excellent. Self-published, kickstarted. The books that are going to be sold here on Pop Shop today or on our website for you guys watching on YouTube and Facebook right now. Those will be signed by the creators. So you'll be able to pick those up right there. We also have 1 copy left of Robert's recent arc on G.I. Joe available in our catalog. It's backwards. There it is. Right there for you pop shoppers. If you guys have any questions for these guys, let us know. Just hop in and ask. We're happy to point you to them and to get some answers for you. It's not every day you get a chance to talk to the creators, and this is obviously going to be a new set of characters for a lot of you guys, so we're happy to introduce you. Robert's got some original art here. We'll be showing off some pages from that, and we'll be looking at some interior pages from the book and talking with Quinn, of course, about the development of the story, the development of characters, and both of these guys for their history with comics. If this is your first time watching us on Pop Shop, click our name right up there and give us a follow. Neighborhood Comics. We're a real-life mom-and-pop comic book shop in Savannah, Georgia. And we're happy to reach out to you guys on Pop Shop, you guys on Facebook and YouTube as well. Thanks so much for being here. We're happy to do this event in conjunction with Pop Shop and LA Comic-Con this weekend. So hopefully everybody is getting their weekend off to a great start. And one way you can do that, as always, is by picking up some new comics. If this is the first time you purchased on Pop Shop Live, don't forget that you open a box for shipping. It's $5.99 priority shipping for everything that you buy. So once you open a box, fill that guy up. You got 12 hours to add more to it before we send it out tomorrow.
Cool.
Awesome. So Good to see a lot of new names in our chat down there today, as well as some of our old favorites. It's so nice seeing you guys today, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to Robert and to Quinn today. All right. We're talking about Elders of the Runestone. Breakfast Club meets X-Men meets...
It has a little horror in there too.
Yeah. No, there's definitely some creepo stuff in here. Sure. Well, we were talking a little bit about the character who's coming into their powers and about your brother with the color on it and all of that, which is really cool. And Marina was, excited to hear that you were able to work with your brother. But you've worked with your brother on a number of projects.
Yeah. So I think some of the first stuff, my brother, Brian Atkins, is he's a bit younger than me, 6 years younger than I am. But he's been working on a number of projects himself. He's worked on a book called Final Street, a book called Family Graves that's published by Source Point Press and through Comics Experience. Then there's also, do you have it over there, Lee?
Yeah, I'm taking a look.
Awesome,
we certainly did.
So. So he's been inking with me on a number of projects. He helped me when I was working on X for Dark Horse, helped me finish up pencils on that book and then inks on that book. And then I did covers for Final Street that he was working on. They had a couple of very good Kickstarters for that book. And then let's see, what else has he worked on?
We sold that book, Robert.
That's great. I think they're going to work on a second series for that too.
Awesome.
But then also this last year, we worked together exclusively on the GI Joe run. So he's been inking me, where we've just worked together enough that we've just kind of created a great little shorthand where we have a similar enough style that he just kind of inks my work, and we're just really happy working together. Turns out we get along. And
if you just joined us, you missed Robert talking about how he doesn't like drawing Superman, but I thought that I'd let you guys see this sketch cover for Batman Superman #1 that we have that Robert put together for us. I feel like Superman is kind of giving Batman the side eye a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I don't know about this.
I don't really trust this guy.
He's like out flexing me here.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of melon-sized pecs.
I know. That's all I do.
We should totally do a comic called Melon-Sized Pecs.
Yeah.
Well, that's the new podcast, I feel like, because it's just so fun to say.
That's good.
And it could be all superhero,
I think we're a fitness podcast. We're not that at all.
Look, I'd take the listeners however you get.
Exactly. But so Brian worked with me on the GI Joe run that we just recently did through Snake Hunt. So he inked all the issues that I worked on. And he's coloring right now the deck building game. So the work that I'm doing on the deck building game, the cover for the box for GI Joe through Renegade Studios. There's a new deck building game that just released, and we're doing all the expansion sets for that. And so he's doing all the coloring on the cards. He's just really well-rounded artist in his own right. And so he came in to help us with RUNESTONE.
Yeah.
And we've obviously, because it's such a long-lived process to get RUNESTONE made, we've had a lot of creators help us along the way. Various inkers. We've dedicated the book to Rick Ketchum, who was a close friend of mine who passed away 6 years ago now. So he inked on the first issue. When I graduated SCAD, I moved up to North Carolina and joined Tsunami Studios, which is an art group there. And I went every day into the office space and worked with these professional comic artists, Randy Green, Rick Ketchum. Some of my first work was doing backgrounds on X-Men for Randy. And it was just
no pressure.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, here, draw the danger room. And I'm like, ah! So it was just, I learned so much from Rick. He just taught me something new every single day. And so it was awesome to get an opportunity to work with him on this book. So we wanted to really kind of add a bit of a tribute to him here. And then we've just had an opportunity to work with Bob Pedroza, colored a lot of the early issues. And then Brian stepped in right at the end just so that we could get it over the line and get it done. And he contributed so much to the final look of the book and colored the cover here over Kevin Sharp, who's a longtime comics veteran. He's done all kinds of work for Marvel, DC, and he's in our Tsunami Studio group as well.
Awesome.
So I've known Kevin for years, and so he came on board to help us with the cover. It's just been awesome to work with so many other people who've been involved in the project along the way.
You've been lucky enough you've been lucky enough. I've been lucky enough for you to have shared some of Rick's original pages as well. I'll go grab a couple of those and we can kind of talk about that a little bit. But speaking of original pages, I know that for a lot of our, watchers right now, they may not have had a chance to interact a lot with original art.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, walk through a little bit. You obviously teach this, but a very high level of kind of your page breakdowns, or maybe how, and you guys can talk a little bit together about the script that Quinn would put together and how Robert would then break it down, how it relates directly to RUNESTONE.
Yeah.
So I'll let you guys do that. Well, I'm gonna go get a beer. You guys need anything?
No, I'm okay. Unless you find a big bag of gold laying around. Yeah. Well, I guess one thing that's interesting with, as far as like you writing or drawing based on the scripts that I write, at one point, I believe you, and you can correct me on here, but you basically said I'm one of the most, I don't know if control freak was the word, but it's just my.
What? Wait, what?
But no, my when I write scripts, because you said there's some artists who are like, or some writers who are like, yeah, there's like a fight scene, so if you can just take care of that, and then on this page, yeah, they fight, and you just take care of that. Whereas I'm like, okay, this is panel 1, page 1, panel 1. This is this big paragraph of all the details of the camera angles and the person's expression, and here's all the cool stuff I like to see, and I kind of break it down like that.
Yeah.
Which then, the nice thing is, and that's evolved. It's definitely evolved where I've come to trust other people more, but it's cool where you and the other artists we work with can take those ideas, and kind of like say, okay, well, I saw what you had here. Let me actually, I have an idea. I could tweak what you wrote, and it would still be cool, and it might even work better. And I'd say 9 out of 10 times, we're like, oh yeah, both of us are like, that's exactly what we want to do. And, but I don't know. Is that correct? Where I'm the one of the most verbose or detailed, or however you want to.
Almost. I did have one Fantastic Four issue I worked on where the guy was a writer for TV, and he came over to do comics.
Oh.
And it wasn't to the extent of like an Alan Moore where he would write like pages and pages of script for one page of comics where it's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it was more than I had ever seen. And there was a particular scene where I was drawing, Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, up by the Statue of Liberty, and he wanted a shot of a destroyed Manhattan and Johnny Storm at the top of the Statue of Liberty, but then was also telling me what the people standing at the base of the Statue of Liberty were thinking. And I'm like, in no way can you show in the same compositional shot all of those things. You can't show a devastated New York across the bay or across the river. You can't show Johnny Storm in the air next to the top of the Statue of Liberty and people at a size, otherwise they're specs, right?
Yeah, right.
You can't show them at a size where you could see their facial expression or know what they're thinking. So why is it in the script? Like that, I don't care. Like I don't. So I need to know the information to draw it clearly and to get the story across. But that was just clear. So I think he just put everything on the page, and then I think, and not to throw him under the bus, but just generally like, so that I can make the best decision possible for what angle to choose. And that's me giving him the benefit of the doubt. I think that was the case. I'm hoping. But it also meant that I had to go through and decipher, is this necessary? Is that necessary? So that actually made my job more challenging.
Because you're like, what was the one part that he really felt the most strongly about?
Exactly.
All these details?
Yeah, I felt like I had to read his mind, or I could have just put one of the guys standing on the ground at the base of the Statue of Liberty and showed him really concerned, but then Johnny Storm's a speck up in the sky.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just one quick example. But so when a writer gets really in depth in their panel descriptions, you're kind of doing the artist a disservice. You feel like you're giving them as much information as possible so they don't have to read your mind, but when in fact you're constraining them because they're not quite sure what exactly is the most important part.
Right. And
they're trying to take all of this information in and draw exactly what you want. In fact, what is the best case scenario, and I found eventually, like we kind of worked out a good, your scripts, especially as you revised over the years and as we ended up working out what our collaboration process worked out best. And I would say too, Chuck Dixon was a phenomenal writer that I worked with. He also did this extremely well. And he's just a longtime veteran. He's been writing comics for 30 years. But he's just incredibly succinct. He's like, this happens, this happens, this happens. This person feels this and says this. And it's like, bang. It's exactly what you need. And it allows me the creativity to come at it with whatever camera angle I think works best for composition, panel layout that I think works best. And if he has a suggestion for, say, I mean, he tells me how many panels are on the page.
Right.
But if he has a suggestion for a panel size or a layout or something like that, then I usually take it into account. I would usually do that. I would have to have a really good reason not to. Is the way I approach it.
Right.
So yeah, I think in general, as far as process goes, it definitely starts with a script. But even that isn't as straightforward as it sounds, because every comic I've worked on over the years, the scripts all look different. There's no unified format for how to write a script, or even every script I've seen looks different. Yeah, over the years.
Well, I'm assuming because there's some that like the way that we work typically is when I write I say panel 1, and I say like, here's all the tons of detail about all the stuff in it. Mm-hmm. But then like if there's if there's some and this happens where there's like, I'm trying to get across this image in my mind, and of this is what I'm asking for, but it's just really hard to describe. And so in that case, I'll do a crappy little like sketch on a yellow piece, yellow sticky note or something, and go like, this is kind of what I'm thinking. And then they're like, oh, that's what you're trying to say. So occasionally I'll do some concept stuff like that very loosely as needed. But I don't know, I'm assuming you work with writers who do lots of little thumbnails and say, this is kind of what I was thinking, da da da.
Yeah, well, honestly, when there's a layout of either a location, especially a location, and they have an idea in their head of what, if they have an image in their head, then I would love some kind of a sketch. And it doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be a great looking sketch.
Thank goodness.
Another great example of that was in this G.I. Joe issue Chuck Dixon was writing, where they go to this like prison gulag in Siberia. He describes it in a paragraph, and I do this exercise with my students. I read through the paragraph, and I'm like, all right, what do you envision this as looking like? And everybody's like, well, and it takes a little bit, and you think about it, and it takes a solid 5-10 minutes to just envision this out of nothing. And then I do a small little diagram, which is the same kind of sketch that I got from, Chuck in the script, and it's like 6 lines.
Just telling Chuck Dixon stories.
Yeah, and in general, it helped me immediately. I just immediately got an envision of like the space he was thinking about, so it just helped a lot. So even a rudimentary sketch lets me know what you're thinking. I don't have to read your mind. Now, obviously, then I also have writers who will embed links or images into the script. And again, if you have something specific in mind that you want, then put it in there, and then that's always going to help the artist know what you're thinking.
We are just joined by one of our favorites, Padre Cheney's here.
Hello!
Checking out Elders of the Runestone, one of our regulars. Nice to share him with our Pop Shop family right now. Here, Michael, this is Quinn, and have you met Robert before? Robert teaches sequential at SCAD.
Yeah.
And Michael teaches film.
This is true.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, awesome. So here we go. Little department, not cross-department crossover.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, let me process that.
Welcome to Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia. My thanks to Quinn and Robert for vamping while I went next door and a keg kicked and they had to switch it out. There's a delightfully large number of children next door, and on their phones, but a handful are reading a bunch of our free comic data.
Oh,
it's a delightful number of children at the bar next door where there's adults drinking beer in the comic shop.
Look, whatever. Exactly. It's Friday, Michael. So Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia, we are here celebrating the launch of Elders of the Runestone. This is a 144-page graphic novel from Robert and Quinn. This is a really cool book. We've been talking about the characters. We've been talking about the development of the art style for the book, going from concept to page. And if you'd like to purchase one from our Pop Shop catalog or for our YouTube and Facebook watchers right over here, you guys can grab one from the link in the comments. Hi, Rain. How are you? It's good to see you.
Hey.
So we are going to flip back around. Yeah, go ahead, friend. You can join us. You can just jump over here.
I've been on camera this entire time.
No,
No.
just for a little bit. Whenever I do this, it flips around and you're on camera.
We got a camera, somebody reading the book.
Terrific.
Yeah.
You will find yourself in all of our publicity stuff. Thanks so much.
I know, it's so good.
So Quinn, you have written for Turtles, you have written for Disney, you've written Kung Fu Panda, some different properties that definitely had a storied history to some degree before you came in. You had something to be able to riff off of.
Yeah.
What is the satisfaction level like with that? Coming in to work with something like you have always wanted to, like Turtles. Like that's a very big, okay, that feels really good to have done that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But how does that compare to getting these characters of your own out into the wild? Is it a different kind of sensation?
Well, it is. It's always cool when you can, because like I said, I love the Ninja Turtles. Always have hugely loved the Turtles. So it's cool when you can tell people like, hey, this script that I wrote is canon. Like they officially has the official stamp of approval. It's canon. That's cool, And that I was able to write a story that influenced characters that I really liked, So that's really cool. That's really, really cool. But of course, the trade-off is that when you're working on a property that's owned by somebody else, they call the shots, and I actually had when I was working on Kung Fu Panda, I remember we went back and forth on a couple points, and because DreamWorks also had to approve everything that I wrote, and they'd give notes. And at one point, I had a line where there's a mayor of a village who's a pig. And he's being threatened by a bad guy who's a fox. And the fox says, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to have pork chops tonight. And they came back and they're like, so in the Kung Fu Panda universe, they're like, in the Kung Fu Panda universe, we don't really have the animals eat each other. And I was like,
good note.
And I was like, good to know. And fair point. Yeah. So we went back and changed it. And so there's just stuff like that where you're like, okay. But as far as like working on my own stuff, it's kind of fun because it's like, this is, with Elders of the Runestone, it's I always tell people, I'm like, it's got action, it's got horror, it's got martial arts, it's got, drama, it's got really strong characters, and basically it's everything I've ever wanted in a comic book. So for me, it's like, if I look at it as like a fan of my own stuff, which sounds weird, but I'm like, this is exactly everything I've ever wanted. And so it's really amazing. And then it's amazing just to finally be in a place where we can then share it with other people and let them have their own experience with it. And hopefully they get a lot out of it too.
Well, that's a really interesting point, that idea of getting notes and having to be, as an artist, I guess the comparable thing would be on model.
Oh, sure.
Of having to make sure that it meets a certain standard of what the characters have been defined to look like. And
any kind of licensed property, you just have to deal with that. Because you have the editors of the publisher that are licensing the property, and then you have the owners of the property who they ultimately answer to as well. So every page you draw has to get approved twice.
Yeah. So for G.I. Joe, it would be IDW and then Hasbro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So IDW is approving each page that gets turned in, and then that whole issue gets turned into Hasbro. So which means you have to be even that much further ahead of schedule, because you have to allow for those approval times and any revisions that come back. Right. So
Kate Sharon has a great story about working on My Little Pony, where the feedback that Kate got back was make all of their pupils 25% smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You're like,
and she's been drawing. It was like, had been working on the book for this was just all of a sudden a new person was on the approvals chain, and that was their feedback. And I always think that's the wildest.
I know, and it was interesting to me because I have two stories about that. One, I had worked on G.I. Joe for IDW for right about 5 or 6 years. I had done over 100 covers for the property, and I've drawn 30 to 40 issues for the property. And I had one revision from Hasbro.
Wow.
Dude.
And that one revision
killing it
was that Snake Eyes I had drawn him wearing a New York Yankees t-shirt.
He can't be a fan.
He
of the
is
Yankees.
not a New York Yankees fan. And I was like, geez, what? So
Come on
they
over,
said,
Rainy.
and I like made the mistake. I was like, all right, well then I redrew him wearing a Mets.
Yes!
Yeah. And they're like, no, he's not a fan of any New York club. And I was like, what the heck?
That sucks.
Well, I was like,
no,
I
I
just
think
gave
that
up at that point. I didn't draw him wearing a baseball shirt at all. But yeah, I mean, so the
That's funny.
you know the
And a
Hasbro.
signature on
Oh,
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the
He's a
Hasbro
favorite.
offices are based in Providence, Rhode Island, and they're
Yep.
just like not having it. So
Is silver okay?
Is that
Yeah,
where they
no,
do the
anything.
HasCon?
yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
right
we're
there
doing.
at the thing. Have you been to that?
No, I thought about it a few times, but I had gone to the Joe convention, the specific Joe convention.
Yes, and that one's in Augusta, Georgia, right?
Well,
Is that every year or
it
is
used to be
okay.
Joe Con specifically, and that traveled. And then Joe Fest, Joe Fest kind of took up the reins.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for saying about it.
Rain, it's good to see you.
Yeah.
Are you doing okay?
I'm alive.
Yeah, that's a
I'm
great
fine.
answer. I
I'm
feel the
fine.
It's
same
live
way.
right now, so
Well,
Yeah.
Rain's not
Tell
on
us your
camera
whole
right
story.
now, but you can.
No, I've been watching y'all since 5, and I was like, I should go in.
Ah, yay! I love it.
I was like, I should go in. 'Cause I was just drawing and listening, and I was like,
Ah, what are you working on right now? Are you doing
well, right
first
now,
art, commissions?
I was doing commissions. I'm trying to make a bunch of like fan merch stuff right
Mhm.
now, and then I need to clean up my thesis to send that as a pitch to a couple places.
Awesome! Exciting. Keep me on the loop on how that goes. Okay?
I want to get with you about that anyway later.
Let's do that.
yeah.
And the artist in residence program. would
I
love-
know.
I would love
Oh my
for
gosh, you
you.
should totally do that.
I know.
I would love
I
for you to
know.
put in
I've been
that.
like watching and following the people who've been doing it. and I'm
Yeah,
just like,
Rodrigo's
it's cool.
doing it this month. I'm excited. He's coming to set up tomorrow. And
Ooh, okay.
I heard from Kenshin.
Mhm.
They're gonna come back from Texas
Yeah.
and do it.
Oh,
So,
really? They're
yeah,
doing
yeah,
it?
I know who you're
Yeah.
talking
Oh,
about. That.
fantastic.
yeah. So we're really excited. So
Yeah.
you should bet it. You think about it.
I'm gonna hang out while y'all.
Yeah, do
Yeah,
it, for
so your
sure.
live stream
Absolutely.
worked. It brought people in.
Oh yeah, well, it's very fun because in today's, so we have Facebook and YouTube over here,
Right.
and over here we have Pop Shop, which is a live shopping platform.
Oh.
And so this event today takes place in conjunction with LA Comic Con.
Oh,
So even though, because a lot of the cons are really scaling back in terms of how many
Yeah.
people they're letting in, especially the California cons. San Diego Comic Con just was last weekend.
Yeah, just recently.
And was very small.
Mhm.
And they
Only
actually
5 million people.
So this is streaming live from the West Coast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
everywhere.
had a few things to say about that.
But it's kind of co-branded with LA Comic Con, which is cool.
That's
So
cool.
it allows us to kind of get in on that where I would not be going necessarily to LA Comic Con. These guys might be in a normal year, but not me.
Yeah. No, I used to go to San Diego every year,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's been a while since I've been out there.
Yeah, for sure. I want to say hey to Mike and Jason and Marcus and Kelly. And let's see, Tina's here, and Daniel and Jonathan and Jay. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. Adam and Yay. Good to see you guys. Internil's here. Awesome. I love to see all these familiar names showing up in our chat. We are Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia. We're a real-life comic book store. Look at us. We're here. There's stuff. Hi, Michael. There you are. Good to see you. Thanks for hopping in today. We are today hosting a signing for Elders of the Runestone. This is a new graphic novel from Robert Atkins and Quinn Johnson. They are here today answering your questions. You can pick up the book signed right there in our catalog, and those guys are going to ship out to you priority tomorrow. So any questions for these guys about the book, about their careers, the other projects they've worked on, you just let us know, and we'd love to include you as a part of what we're doing here today. All right. Yeah,
I have a
Padre,
question.
go for it, man.
What do you think? Age appropriate. What is?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So the book was specifically, I would say it's equivalent to like a Marvel movie. So there's lots of fighting, lots of action. There's a fair amount of murder and mayhem, but it's mostly the graphic stuff is mostly not shown.
Yeah.
But there's like no sexual content, no language, that kind of a thing. So it's
Cool.
what do you think?
The way I
Things
usually
are-
tell parents is superhero violence.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
those
That
books.
being said,
Yeah.
it's
We have that at home.
Yeah.
You do. You got a bunch of boys.
Yeah. The occasional being thrown through a brick wall.
Yeah.
But that being said, it gets really crazy intense on a lot of parts.
Well, that's funny because, that's something that comes up a lot here in the store with parents who want to go and grab the most recent Marvel book for their kid. And their kid may be 8 or 9, and it says teen on the book. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And, the difference between teen and teen plus, I usually explain it as teen is superhero violence. They will see people getting thrown through walls. They will see, space battles and lasers. Teen plus means there may be guns that look like real guns.
Ooh,
there may be, more racy character design in terms of clothing or whatnot. Michael, thanks so much for picking up a copy, my friend. Appreciate that. We're going to get that out to you, and we'll get that signed for you today as well. Yeah.
So you published through you guys, or did you find a publisher?
Well, so we actually are. These are done through us right now.
Yeah.
But we actually are actively talking to different publishers right now because we would love for something like that we'd love to have a partner on it moving forward. So yeah.
But at the same time, we're publishing it regardless. So no matter what, we're going to continue publishing it going forward.
Yeah.
And whether it's self-published or with a publisher, we don't really care. It'd be wonderful if we had a larger publisher, but either way, we'll do it.
I was just noticing the in-betweens of this, and I was like, this is very personable. I was so I wasn't sure if it had gotten picked up. I like it because it's not super ad heavy. The ad is, or what feels like an ad is just more of the RUNESTONE.
Right.
Yeah.
So the as of right now, you can go on the runestonecomic.com website and you can purchase the individual PDF issues, or you can get the digital of the full book. And then going forward, like we said, we currently have issues 5, 6, and 7, which you know very well. This is Naomi's roommate.
Oh, hey!
Rain, could you hand me that G.I. Joe book right now? It's sold, so I want to make sure nobody grabs it off.
Okay, so
I won't steal it.
So what the plan is that we will release those, and we'll launch, kind of the marketing plan for that going forward. But we'll be releasing those relatively soon, especially relatively soon compared to this one.
Yeah.
But with a very much a regularly scheduled plan going forward, that there will be a more regular schedule. And then with the idea that, very purposely on this cover, it says part 1 of 3, because we have big plans, for the rest of the series. So
part 2 is almost all produced. So
which we haven't had a chance to talk too much about, which I am so pumped about. So it's awesome that Rain's here because Rain's roommate, Naomi, who we have absolutely loved working with, was just such an awesome find. So I had Naomi in class. It's been a while now, though, but
yeah.
But as a grad student at SCAD, and as we were looking to continue the story, I obviously knew that with my schedule, I was too busy to continue it. We needed to find somebody who I had confidence in storytelling and stylistically, not that we were looking for them to draw exactly like me, but could pick up the same tone of the book, and really, more than anything, have the characters emote, and you really get a sense of their sincerity, because we knew that was the heart of the story. And action is great, and we love that as a part of it, but that is not the focus of the book, right? Even as much as I love drawing it, but honestly, that's what we were looking for. And so
she's just killed it. She's done such an awesome
she's
job.
so phenomenal. So we just absolutely love.
We love you, Naomi.
Yeah. So just in general, just hyper consistent. So as much as we've kind of used a lot of different artists to help get the first 4 issues done, there is just such solid consistency in
moving
issues
forward.
5, and on. So that's what we're
So Naomi is the main penciler and inker. Robert is still continuing as the art director. And so they definitely work. We all work together to collaborate, and he can give feedback and help with certain things here and there. So Robert's still very much involved on this whole thing. But Naomi's just been a dream to work with, and she's just a not only is she an incredibly talented artist, but she's just a delightful, kind, wonderful person, and so we're so grateful to have her
awesome.
on the team.
And I know that you've had the chance. This isn't the first time you've been able to pass work along to students and incorporate them into what you do.
And so in general, I think SCAD is really good about doing that, hiring people who are professionals in their industry, because when they come to teach, then they bring with them a professional network and opportunity, and that's ideal. And for me, that was really important because some of my professors, Professor John Lowe, introduced me to Randy Green, who I mentioned earlier, what gave me my first foot in the door.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's just paying it forward, and that's the model I was shown. And so I want to continue doing that. But
did you show any of Rick's pages earlier?
No, not yet. Yeah.
Awesome. So we're talking about those people that that Robert
Is that
has.
up for you?
Very much so.
Okay.
This is going to be a Christmas gift to my son, Ronan.
Oh, Ronan. Nice.
It's Ronan.
Oh, he's not a
It's
mercenary.
He's the Irish guy, not the Japanese mercenary.
Oh well. Next time.
Yeah, no, there'll be no next time. We got 3. We're good.
Well, we'll leave. I am going to bed, but I wanted to hang.
Rain, it was so good to see you.
So
I
good to
missed
see
you the
you.
last few times you've been in the shop.
I know.
so-
I've been a few times.
I know, and
Okay.
I thank you for that. And I'm sorry I missed you. So good to see
I
you.
can't not spend a good bit of money every time I walk
What
in
else
here.
did you pick up today?
I love that question. Who are you?
Oh yeah, thank you. That was a big part of it. That was a big part of it. Well, we wrote the intro part at the beginning. We kind of talked about why we chose to call it this first mini series because it is a big
As
theme
Santa
of the whole.
comic, the big hero.
Whole
Yeah,
book.
yeah.
The characters
And
figuring out who
then
they are and what do you do
girls
once you
with
get these
this-
powers, who you're going to become,
Oh,
and
girls
all that
with
stuff.
these-
So-
That's the thing I think we wrestle
That
with
was
as
on back
teenagers.
order.
Yeah.
And adults too, but
And
They
particularly
finally
as
got more
teenagers.
copies in, so
Yeah.
I'm so glad you grabbed
Yeah,
them.
what
But
choices
I
are you
will
going to
be
make?
back
And
and tell you about some other ones.
So,
to
yeah.
see if you've gotten like second copies and stuff.
Don't annoy me. Email me, whatever. Yeah. Annoy me. That's fine. See you,
Don't
Rain.
agree with your show.
So we were
Awesome.
talking about,
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Rick
guys.
Ketchum
Appreciate you guys
earlier.
being here.
and
yeah, absolutely.
Good to see you,
Let me
Cheney.
see if I don't mess this book up reading it before I have to give it to him as a gift.
And Rick had worked on, a ton of Marvel stuff that's going to be easy to grab, and a lot of the
for
pages we have, but also IDW stuff. Every publisher.
He really had. He had worked. You could look him up pretty easily. He had worked
Yeah.
in just through comics. He started in the kind of late or mid '90s, I guess, is really when he got his foot in the door, and had worked for Marvel mostly, but had worked for just about every publisher, and was a mainstream kind of regular monthly inker. He had worked a lot with Randy Green. He had worked with Michael Ryan on New X-Men, Excalibur, on Runaways for a long time. He had worked with, I'm trying to think some of the other main partners he worked with Brian Ching on Scar, Son of Hulk. We have a lot of those.
We have, those Scar pages. And Scar has been cast for the She-Hulk movie.
That's so crazy. That's awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I know.
I've got more of those pages too. I could bring in.
Sweet.
They're really
Those Scar pages, and it drives me nuts because it's not as well known of a character, although it's in
Yeah.
the Marvel and
Yeah.
Hulk pantheon and
But
stuff.
the pages are phenomenal.
Cool. Dinosaurs, and
Yeah,
it's very Kazar is kind of
Yeah,
what my reference point for that kind of design is,
Yeah.
but it's awesome. It's really cool.
I apologize. I'm messaging a friend who was asking about getting a signed copy, so I'm telling him about
Oh, good.
hopping on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Pop Shop, you can also go to neighborhoodcomics.com, click on shop.
Okay.
It's right there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and we've got these great pages from Rick. I'm going to go ahead and drop this Untold Tales of the Punisher.
Yeah.
This is from Marvel Max. This is issue 5, page 19, original art. So this is the original. Was Rick working? Yeah, this is just blue line pencil and Rick's. Is this pencils and inks, or is this just Rick's inks?
This one would be most likely just Rick's inks.
Okay.
So yeah, sometimes really it was right about mid 2000s that it's rare now that the penciler will send the original pencils. Now this Emma Frost page over Drew Johnson is the original inks over the pencils.
Yeah.
So still occasionally you'll find art inked directly over. More often than not, you'll see original inks over blue line pencils.
Yes.
And that's just out of production necessity nowadays. It used to be that you would build up anywhere from 4 to 6 pages of penciled art, then you would FedEx it to your inker wherever they lived in the world, and they would get those pages, ink them, then either scan them. If they didn't have the facility to scan them, they would FedEx them to Marvel or DC, or they would scan them there, and then you would get art returns. They would split them 1/3 to the inker, 2/3 to the penciler. And that was typically industry standard. With blue lining, the way that that works, and I love kind of talking about this example.
Oh, yeah.
When we were on Snake Eyes, of course, IDW's in San Diego. Chuck Dixon lives down in Florida on the East Coast. San Diego is on the West Coast. At the time, I was living in Illinois, Central Time. We'd have a script written in Florida, approved in California. I would start drawing it literally 5 minutes later after it was approved and emailed to me. I would pencil page 1, finish it that night, upload it, send it back to Juan Castro, who had worked on this as well, on RuneStone for us. Juan Castro's a good friend.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he inked that first Snake Eyes series. He lived in Tijuana, Mexico. So Juan lived on the West Coast, again, 2 hours earlier. So if I finished the page by 4 or 5 p.m., he could start on it at 3 in the afternoon, technically.
And you're like, it's not late yet.
Yeah, I was like, no, it's on time. So he would start inking it at 3 in the afternoon, and he would ink it into the night and finish it, sometime around 10 o'clock at night. And then he would be done and send it to Simon Goff, our colorist, who lives in Brighton, England. So because he lived in Brighton, which was 8 hours in the future,
that was
6 in the morning. So Simon would wake up 7 in the morning. There would be an inked page ready for him, literally the same day, technically the same day that I'm going to bed. So I'm going to bed at, say, like 10 o'clock at night, already starting the next page, going to bed 10 o'clock at night, when Simon's coloring the page I just finished, like literally a couple hours earlier.
Wow.
So then while I'm sleeping, Simon's coloring that page. When I wake up, that page is done, sent back to IDW, 8 hours in the past, back in time, and IDW wakes up to a page done.
Yeah.
And they were like, wait, what just happened? And we're like, we are the best team ever. So that was the only way we stayed on time.
Literally harnessing the powers of time.
Exactly.
Travel.
It took time travel for me to hit a deadline. That's basically what happened. But it worked. It worked phenomenally. And so we did that for that whole run. We worked on I think it was about 10 issues that we did together on Snake Eyes, and that we worked, and then we came back and did another series after that. But that was like, I think for G.I. Joe, that was the most fun I had, was working with that team of me and Juan and Simon working together. It was just such a blast. I really enjoyed that story arc.
If you're just joining us, welcome to Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia. Ephraim, Hannah, Olindia, Jesse, Arthur, good to see you, friend. Frank, Alan, Jason, Stevie, Upgo. Welcome, guys. Glad you're here. Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia. Today is a part of Pop Shop and LA Comic-Con. We are welcoming Robert Atkins and Quinn Johnson to celebrate the launch of their new graphic novel, Elders of the RUNESTONE. You guys can grab that right now from our catalog. In addition to that, you guys can also pick up a couple of original pages from Robert's friend, Rick Ketchum. Those pages the proceeds from that do go to Rick's family as well. So you guys can feel good about picking those up as well. We posted 2 pages so far, one from Punisher, Untold Tales of the Punisher, and one from Emma Frost, issue 1. So we are talking mostly today about Elders of the RuneStone, about creating comics. We would love to hear your questions. If you guys are watching on Facebook and YouTube, or if you're watching on Pop Shop Live, feel free to just chime in with any comments or questions that you have for the guys, and we will add those in. Our friend Hi's here. What's up, Hi?
Hey, how's it going?
Good to see you, man.
Oh, am I walking into something?
You're
No,
fine. You're fine.
Okay.
We're having a signing today, so
Oh,
this is Robert and Quinn.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
and Hi's coming to pick up his substantial asides, which I appreciate. Thank you so much, Hi.
Play the game to see how many actual covers there are.
You have a lot of variants this week. It's not like last time. You have a lot this time.
Oh,
Avengers 750 put a dent in you this month. Robert's got a number of his original pages here as well today, and we've been looking at some of those and talking about the development of story design from script to page, what that really looks like from a creator standpoint. For comic book fans, that really is kind of a next level thing of collecting pages, of collecting original art. Because it's one thing to hunt down a comic that there are 20,000 copies printed of or more, a variant that may have 500 copies made. But original pages, there's only one.
Yeah, exactly. It's been interesting to have that be a part of the art market and see how that's changed over the years. And for comic artists, it's actually pretty important because every industry is slightly different. Comics, I would say, has been mostly my full-time job until I came down to teach full-time. I still do comics regularly, but
like this one.
Builders
of the Runestone.
Oh, I just forgot. Wait, what? So no, I mean, I did comics very much full time, and even though I did a lot of toy package art or board games or video game work or commercial art here or there, I would always call myself a comic book artist because I would just always come back to that. And there's pros and cons to working in all these variety of industries. Things like video games and toy package art, you can't resell that original art because you're under non-disclosure agreements that you can't show it publicly a lot of times, which I learned the hard way.
Oh no!
No, yeah. As it turns out. So there's, but you know, sometimes board games you can, which I mean, that's what these are.
These G.I. Joe pages or the Turtles.
So this was from a Ninja Turtle game. These are from the G.I. Joe board game that's out right now. So those are like the cards that they publish for the game that you play. And so there's original art in a lot of the commercial art and the products that you buy. And you can actually find the artist who worked on it, and often they're credited, which is great when they are. And you can contact them through social media. And now it's easier than ever to actually get in touch with the artist who's behind the work, which is pretty great. Another interesting thing you could do is if you're really interested in following writers who work on projects, I've known a lot of writers who will get a script, and then I've worked it out with writers in the past where they would I print out the script that was written, and then I do my thumbnails on that script, I sign it, and then I give it back to the writer, and the writer signs it, and then that gives the writer an original something to sell.
That is really cool.
Because I have plenty of original stuff to sell, but the writer often doesn't.
Quinn's like, tell me more.
Yeah, and he's like, we should do that. So
I like money.
And then so throughout the years, though, comics typically doesn't pay as well. It just simply doesn't pay as well as video games or toy package art, that kind of stuff. But the
what do you think that is? Do you think it's the quantity of art that's developed for comics, or is it just a different industry that values art in a different way, or considers it something other than?
No, I think it's all of those reasons. It's a number of factors. I think the history of it. I think that
the history of it for sure.
Yeah,
those guys back in the 50s and earlier. I mean, all those pages were thrown away.
I know. It just. But so to offset that, I think we're given certain allowances, meaning that we can brand ourselves. Our name is put on the front cover, and we're given a lot of notoriety for the work that we do. Yeah. Whereas on a video game, like your quick blip on a credit scene on a lot of toy package art, your name is never put on it. On the cover of the board game I drew, my name was erased, which is fine, but that's part of the industry.
But you signed it. You put your little Atkins on
there. I signed it, and then it was abruptly
Yeah.
erased. And I was like, okay, that's how it works. But in comics, like, you are promoted as a brand, which is great, because then you can then go to a convention, people come and find you, and you can build up your brand as an artist.
Yeah.
And then every piece of art you create for comics, you can then resell. And for me, when I was working full-time as a comic artist, my original art sales were easily 30% of my income.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal when you create art traditionally. Now, though, as art is moving more to a digital age, that becomes a big conundrum, right?
Yeah.
So either if your art can be produced fast enough that the digital choice allows you to do that much more comics, then it's worth it. There are a few people, the big name artists who are working digitally, like a Pepe Larraz, Jorge Jimenez, a number of other people. They've come up with a way to do like a lithograph one-off print
Yeah.
of their books, sign it, it gets like foil stamped or something in the corner, like notarized, that it is a one-off. It's still a print though, even if it's a high-end lithograph. So we're still trying to test the market to see like
how digital only artists.
Yeah, are they still able to sell what is like, it's still a print. It's not, there is no original traditional piece of artwork.
Whereas we kind of get I don't know, like especially for non-traditional comic, but like your Alex Rosses, your painters, Alex produces an original piece, but then like the prints are just kind of built in. Like, he is going to, especially covers or kind of iconic key poses, and he has found a way to make those limited editions very valuable.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, of course, he is at a certain, it's as a very like that painterly illustrative thing.
Right.
It's kind of different than pencils and inks and flats and
So I mean, in general, so I work both. I would work traditionally on any comic book project that I know I'm going to sell the original for. I would work digitally for any video game project I know I can't sell the original for.
Yeah.
So it's in your best interest to learn both. Now, again, I would work that's why I have a stack of pencils here, is because I scan it in and then that file gets sent to the inker, which in this case was my brother.
Did he do the cards too?
So the cards, I'm just penciling and inking those myself.
You're inking those yourself.
So I can sell those as just pure original inked pieces. And then, so that does create technically two originals when you have an original pencil and then an original blue line ink.
Which we were kind of talking about with some Rick stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
So that's a bit of the exception to the rule, is that's the only time you would technically have two originals. They're both created by artists.
Yep.
They're both technically originals, but one is just inked over a reproduction of the pencils. And so that becomes an interesting market to try and find both of them and display them together.
Oh,
and you get a process.
Oh, for sure. I always think about that, just kind of making a little bit of, not parody, but those pages that are separate. When you have two pages, two originals for one page, it typically, I guess, depending on the artist and who's involved, makes them a little bit more accessible for a newbie to purchase. Yeah. Because, if you think about one that has everything, well, that is the one.
Yeah, like this page, that's the only version of that page there will ever be. Yeah. And so, or like this cover for RuneStone here, I mean, like that is the only cover, like it's just inked on that board. And so that's it.
Let's talk about this as we're looking at it. I'll hold it up here. Let's talk about covers and kind of how you approach covers. And I'm sure that the decision is different for every project, and different publishers and different creative teams that you're working on. But specifically for the 4 covers, and was the graphic novel cover a 5th cover, or was that one of the issue covers?
It was one of the 5th. It was a 5th cover.
Yeah,
like a variant specifically that Kevin did for us.
That's a back cover. Yeah, he did a front and back.
Yeah.
Cool. So when you are working on a cover, Robert, like what is that typically like for you as the artist? Is that a separate note? Is that, if you're working on something from, we'll talk about it from like a publisher basis, and then we'll talk about it from a creator-owned basis.
Yeah, of course. Because I think they are very different. It's a good point. I think for covers, the way I talk about it in my classes is I break it down into 3 main types. You could have a story-driven cover that is there to push the question, what's going to happen in this book? Yeah. So when you see the characters on the cover, they're somehow depicting what's going to happen in the book. It's usually somehow representative of a plot point. Then you can have an iconic cover, which you look at it and it's just the character doing what typically is like Batman standing on a gargoyle. You're like, that is Batman.
Yeah.
Right? It's Spider-Man swinging through Manhattan, something like that. And you just know that is iconic for that character. Or you could do something that is symbolic. Right, so it doesn't necessarily have to be figure-based or representative of that figure, but it is somehow symbolic of what's going to happen or what the tone of the book is about.
It's like the Superman symbol bleeding on the death of
Exactly, yeah. So very symbolic, right? So,
but do you get that as a note, or do you get that as? Does it depend? Like, would a publisher be like, "Hey, for this cover, we're really thinking the splash, or you know, like you did this thing, maybe we could blow that out as a plot point, or
sometimes it kind of it depends. Whether it's certainly a #1 issue, you definitely don't want to typically do a story based cover because people don't know the story yet.
Right.
So you want to do like on Elders of the Runestone here. It's our variant cover. It's very iconic. It's these characters looking cool, doing what they do. Right? So that's always best for a #1 cover. Typically, until we know these characters, we don't want to get into story. So our covers for the first arc are very iconic, I would say. But I think of like symbolic covers, you do want to give variety. I bring classes here and I have them look at the wall of covers and it becomes a gallery, and I talk to them about which covers stand out. And it's not these busiest covers, right? No. It's usually the ones that are of a limited color palette. There's less going on, and usually it's the more symbolic covers. Or the more single figure covers, or something like that.
Or sometimes even I end up referring to them as gimmick covers, which isn't always appropriate. But it's the ones that are like your negative space or using silhouettes. Or a lot of high contrast, because that is what pops when you look at a wall, especially the superhero poses and action sequences and all of that.
And that could be great. I mean, you could certainly do that as a theme for every one of your issues, but usually it's good to break up every few arcs or every few issues with one of those, just to kind of build a rhythm of what people expect and to help yours stand out from the rest.
And that's kind of where the variant cover industry comes in. Is like, oh, let's do this one-off iconic or this artist's interpretation of this character that has absolutely nothing to do with what's inside the book.
The one time that came back to bite me is I did a variant cover on G.I. Joe where we were doing an homage to the Crisis cover of Superman holding Supergirl. And I had Duke holding Scarlet, like hanging in his arms, and all freaked out. Everybody's like, "Scarlet's dead." I'm like, "No, it's just an homage cover." Like everybody freaked out online. I'm like, "No, it's nothing to do." No, they asked me to do it. So they're like, "Hey, can you do this Crisis homage?" I was like, "Sure." And then they loved it. They're like, "Can you do another one with Cobra characters?" I'm like, "You realize I drew 50 characters on this cover?"
They're like, "Oh, we know."
I did it again.
Yeah, no, they totally know.
So I did one for the Cobra.
But you had to sell those originals, right? You did those physically, right? Okay. Good.
Heck yeah, I did. Yeah. So then I did one for the Cobra book, and then I did one for the Snake Eyes book. So I did 3 versions of that.
Wow.
Was he holding his wolf?
No, I shut up! Oh my gosh! I missed such a big opportunity. Where were you 10 years ago?
I know. My limited knowledge of Snake Eyes, I know he has a wolf.
You're just crying over Timber.
Yeah.
Pause it. What's he holding? He wasn't holding anybody, actually. Helix was knocked out, laying down over the rock, and he was turned in to shoot a Uzi at somebody. So we did a more action-based one. He's like, "So much for Helix," and he was just like running away.
I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Daniel, thanks for your question. I want to thank Veronica, and I want to thank everyone who gave us a follow today. Hannah, thank you so much for that follow. We're Neighborhood Comics in Savannah, Georgia. My name is Lee. I'm the owner of the shop here. We are winding down our chat with creators Robert Atkins and Quinn Johnson for their new graphic novel, Elders of the Runestone, which we are debuting here on Pop Shop Live as well as on Facebook and YouTube. Any purchases made of this graphic novel during the show today are going to come signed from the creators, so feel free to go ahead and pick one up with confidence. We will ship tomorrow, so all of these books will go out priority. If you're new to Pop Shop Live, and if you're new to our show, be sure to click on Neighborhood Comics right up there and give us a follow. You can also find us online at neighborhoodcomics.com. So if later you're thinking about this book, or maybe you get a copy and you decide you want more copies, hey Dee, how are you? You guys can grab those off our website as well. We'll have our full stock in store signed as well. So you can pick those signed copies up from us direct later on. You can also follow us on all the social media channels at NBRHD Comics. And if life ever brings you to Savannah, Georgia, come in and see us in real life. We are wrapping up here with the creators of Elders of the Runestone. I'm going to turn it back over to Quinn and Robert, and we will give them a chance to talk about where people can find and follow them online.
So the main website is runestonecomic.com. as you can see in the back here.
Hi, good to see you.
But yeah, runestonecomic.com, that's the main website, where that links you to buy the limited run of the physical books. Oh, you got it? Physical books. And then they can also buy the digital editions of this and the individual issues. That's the main place to go. That's also where you can subscribe for fan updates, where we send out updates on the new stuff that's coming, and as well as give you lots of fun behind the scenes stuff like cameos of people that we kill and that kind of a thing. So that's the main place to go. And then that links to all of our social media channels as well. Yeah. Anything else as far as?
Yeah, so we're going to be updating stuff like, every day, especially as we're kind of rolling out just the launch of the book.
Yeah.
So you can see your social media is.
It's at Quinn Mr. Wonderful.
So it's the most humble.
Yeah,
handle
wow.
I've ever heard.
All right.
I'm just Robert Atkins Art, so that's on various social medias. So we'll be posting information there.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks for picking up a copy of the book. Thanks to everybody for tuning in today. It has really been our pleasure to reach out to our Pop Shop family, as well as everybody following us on YouTube and Facebook tonight. It's really been my pleasure to talk with Robert and Quinn about their book. I hope that everybody enjoys it who's picked up a copy tonight. And if you weren't able to pick up a copy tonight, you can get those from neighborhoodcomics.com or in person in the store if you guys are local and want to pop on over and do that. All of your copies are going to come signed. Thank you guys again so much for your support. As always, if life ever brings you to Savannah, Georgia, come see us at NBRHD Comics on all the social media platforms, neighborhoodcomics.com. Thanks so much, Quinn and Robert.
Thank you.
Awesome. I hope you guys have a great weekend. If you pick up anything else from the favorite